On paper, the economy is stronger than ever. In reality, the cost of living has climbed faster than paychecks ever could. To match the same middle-class life your parents could afford on a single income in 1985, you would now need about 62 weeks of work in a year. The middle class didn't disappear, it just started living on time it doesn't have. Chapter 1. The 62-Week Year. The American dream used to have a simple definition: work hard, earn enough, and you can afford a stable middle-class life. But the question is whether that definition still holds. Economist Orrin Cass and his research group, American Compass, developed something called the Cost of Thriving Index to test exactly that. The idea is simple. Take one family and one basket of basics, and then ask how many weeks do they have to work to pay for the items. The basket covers groceries, a modest home at the 40th percentile, family health insurance, and a car for work. Then add in college for the kids on top of it all, and that's the base of an ordinary American life. In 1985, the answer was about 40 weeks. The average middle-class American paid for all of it and still had a fifth of the year left over. That leftover turned into savings, into a down payment, into a bit of breathing room for a bad year. By 2022, the same basket swallowed 62 weeks of pay. It now takes 14 months of work to buy 12 months of a normal life. The shortfall is not bad luck or a rough patch, it's baked into the system. There's a cruel twist buried in the wages. That 1985 worker earned about $443 a week. His 2022 replacement took home about $1,200, nearly triple a paycheck. On paper, he looks 3 times richer, but the cost of basics rose faster than the raise ever could. The bigger number now buys a smaller life. A single income used to carry a household. Now it takes 2 paychecks to barely buy what one used to. The American middle-class family added a whole second earner and stayed in the same place. So when a household looks fine, something is usually holding it up behind the scenes. It might be a second job, or overtime, or gig work after the kids are asleep, or a credit card filling in the gap. None of that is a choice anymore. It is how people survive. You might think this only affects a small number of families. It doesn't. In early 2024, the research group Payments found that 48% of households earning over $100,000 a year live paycheck to paycheck. It doesn't stop there. Roughly 36% of households earning over $200,000 report the same thing. These families are known as Henrys, high earners, not rich yet. They hold the salary their grandparents would have called a fortune. Behind it sits drained savings and a retirement fund that keeps sliding away. They do everything their parents did. They follow every rule they're told, and they're still losing ground. So if the people at the very top are going under, who is this booming economy actually booming for? Chapter 2. The GDP Ghost. The booming part is not exactly a lie. The economy grew around 2% in 2025. Unemployment stayed low for a long stretch, and the S&P 500 kept hitting record highs. By those readings, everything looks healthy. The trouble is what's left out. Think about what actually matters. GDP tracks output, the total dollars of goods and services produced. It tells you how big the economy is, not how far your paycheck goes. Unemployment tracks whether you have a job, not whether that job lets you afford rent, food, or basic stability. Both are useful indicators, but neither answers the question that people actually live with. Does working full-time still cover a normal life? A lot of what we call growth is just the staggering cost of standing still. A lot of the jobs being created sit in the service economy. Walmart, the largest private employer in the country, employs roughly 1.6 million Americans, but the wages in those roles don't keep pace with rent or health insurance costs. Since the late 1970s, a typical worker's pay has risen about 14.8%. The output from each worker has risen about 64.6%. CEO pay over that same stretch jumped over 1,300%. There's a huge disparity between those doing the work and those reaping the rewards. Economists sometimes describe the pattern after downturns as a K-shaped recovery. One line rises for those who own the assets. The other drifts lower for those who rely on wages. The same economy, 2 very different trajectories. So the economy keeps growing while the family budget shrinks. People feel the gap even when they can't name it. For years, they have told pollsters the economy feels rough, and the data keeps insisting they're wrong. Writer Kyla Scanlon calls this gap a vibe session. It's the distance between how the economy looks on paper and how it feels at the kitchen table. Surveys from the University of Michigan have tracked that mood staying weak for years, even as major economic indicators continue to rise. That disconnect isn't random. It reflects what those indicators measure and what they don't. GDP and unemployment are useful tools, but they don't capture the cost of holding a normal life together. Rent, healthcare, groceries, and everything it takes to stay stable month to month. So the numbers move on charts and headlines, but they don't always match what people are actually feeling. Chapter 3. The Big Four. You've been told you're richer than your parents because your things are better and less expensive. The television is huge. The phone in your pocket could outperform a 1985 supercomputer. Economists even adjust inflation figures for quality changes in products. It's called hedonic adjustment because a phone or a TV today is better than one from 10 years ago, but in real life that improvement doesn't always translate to feeling better off. You might be able to afford a large 4K television. What's harder is affording the space to live comfortably around it. Because the biggest shift hasn't been in gadgets, it's in housing. A home used to cost about 3 times a household's annual income. In many cities today, it's well over 5. Take Austin as an example. The price-to-income ratio reached about 5.75 in 2022. By mid-2025, it had cooled to around 4.31, but that is still above its long-term average of roughly 3.9. And the barrier isn't just monthly payments. A 20% down payment on a median home can mean around $80,000 up front. That's money most renters can't save while covering rent and daily expenses. After the 2008 crash, the Wall Street firm Blackstone moved quickly to buy up foreclosed homes at scale. It later built a company called Invitation Homes, which at its peak managed roughly 80,000 properties. Another major player, Progress Residential, grew to around 97,000 homes. In Atlanta, big investors at one point owned close to 25% of all single-family rentals. The starter home stopped being a place to live, and it became a return on someone else's money. Childcare is another drain on the middle class. The federal government calls childcare affordable at 7% of your income, a bar almost nobody clears. The average cost runs over $13,000 a year for a single child. For 2 kids, you are past $26,000, more than many Americans earn before taxes. In an expensive metro, 2 children in care can eat 30 to 40% of a $100,000 salary. In 45 states, it now costs more than the average mortgage. In 38, it runs higher than in-state college tuition. Then there's the problem of healthcare. In 2024, the average family plan was close to $25,600. By 2025, it was $27,000. Employees cover roughly $6,300 of that straight out of their paycheck. Over 5 years, those premiums jumped 24% while wages lagged behind. Most of the country can't get to work without a car either. By 2025, a new car payment cost around $750 a month. The insurance alone topped $2,000 a year before a drop of gas hit the tank. The system doesn't feel like it's breaking,